Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. And if this is your first time here, welcome. I am the host and this is a photo and video editing channel where we try to make learning easier and fun. In today's video, let's discuss the best camera for wildlife photography. Wildlife photography is one of those genres where there are no clear-cut rules to follow, and every situation is different, but that is what makes it so exciting. To get started, let's take a closer look at some of the best wildlife cameras. But before we begin, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell. Let's get started. So the very first thing that you will need is a good camera body and then a super zoom lens. The best camera for wildlife photography should have three main features. Firstly, fast and accurate autofocus as well as quick continuous shooting. Secondly, good image quality, and lastly, fast and efficient burst modes. Some of the best cameras for wildlife photography are the Canon EOS R7, Nikon Z6 II, Sony A7 IV. Here we have the Canon EOS R7, which is my favorite camera for wildlife photography due to its impressive autofocus system. Now when it comes to wildlife photography, getting your shot depends heavily on whether or not your camera can focus on the animal quickly and accurately, and the R7 does exactly that. The R7 is built around Canon's dual-pixel CMOS AF system and uses intelligent subject recognition technology. This means it can track your subject as it moves around in and out of the frame. It is also capable of shooting at up to 15 frames per second, which is important for capturing fast-moving subjects. In terms of image quality, the R7 has a 32.5 megapixel APS-C-sized sensor, which produces sharp and detailed photos. The pictures look stunning and professional. Plus, with its dual card slots, you won't have to worry about running out of space. So the Canon EOS R7 is an amazing option for wildlife photography, but it is not the only one. The other options, such as the Nikon Z6i and Sony A7 IV, also come with similar features and benefits. The Nikon Z6i has a full-frame sensor, which gives you that rich and vibrant look, while the Sony A7 IV has a hybrid autofocus system that allows for face, eye, and body detection. Ultimately, the best camera for wildlife photography is subjective and depends on your needs and preferences. However, both these cameras are excellent choices, and they are all fantastic options for any wildlife photographer. Another option could be the Nikon D850, which offers 45.7 megapixel resolution. Now, this is a full-frame DSLR with fast autofocus and a big battery. It's ideal for shooting wildlife, or if you want to shoot video, the Canon R5 is a top choice too. It shoots stunning 8K videos and has brilliant stabilization. Now, all these options are really good, but we will be discussing more options later in the video. Now, once you have the right camera, it's time to talk about lenses. You may already know that I prefer to use a super zoom lens for wildlife photography. The most popular wildlife lenses are the ones with a focal length of 300 millimeters or more. These allow you to get close to the action without disturbing the animals. They are usually heavier than other types of lenses, but the quality of the images they produce is worth it. Some of the best super zoom lenses for wildlife photography are the Canon EF 400mm f5.6L, the Sigma 150-600mm f5.6.3 DGOS HSM, and the Nikon AFS 600mm f for EFL EDVR. My personal favorite is the Canon EF 400mm f5.6L because of its optical image stabilizer. This feature helps me to keep my shots steady and sharp even if I am not using a tripod. With this lens, I've been able to capture stunning images of birds in flight and wildlife that I never thought I would be able to capture. It's also very versatile and it works great in a variety of lighting conditions. Another great option is the Sigma 150-600mm f5.6.3 DGOS HSM. It is a much more affordable option than the Canon, and it offers a lot of value for money. It has a wider focal range than the Canon, which makes it a good choice if you want to shoot a variety of subjects. However, it's much heavier and larger than the Canon, and it's not as sharp at higher magnification. Lastly, the Nikon AFS 600mm f for EFL EDVR is another great choice. It has a very sharp lens and it has a fast aperture which allows you to shoot in low light conditions. However, it's very expensive and not widely available. All in all, there are a lot of great super zoom lenses on the market. Ultimately, the best lens for you will depend on your budget, style, and preferences. Now, while I'm a huge fan of super zoom lenses, I do recognize that they are not the only game in town. There are still plenty of times when I wish I had a longer focal length. That's why I've also invested in a few prime lenses. Prime lenses offer a fixed focal length, which can be a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it forces you to move around and get closer to your subject, which is often necessary for wildlife photography anyway. On the other hand, it means that you can't zoom in further. So it's important to choose a prime lens with a focal length that is long enough for your needs. If you're thinking about investing in a prime lens, I highly recommend the Canon EF 600mm f for E. It's an incredibly sharp lens and it's also relatively affordable compared to other 600mm lenses. Plus, it's a very versatile lens and it can be used for a variety of wildlife photography applications. Now, the next thing that you will need is a tripod or monopod. Using a tripod or monopod will help you to keep your camera stable and reduce the chances of blur. It's especially important when you are using a super zoom lens as they can be quite heavy and unwieldy. I personally prefer to use a monopod when I am shooting wildlife as it's more portable and easier to set up than a tripod. I also find it to be more stable than shooting handheld. Just be sure to choose a monopod that is sturdy enough to support your camera and lens. You can also look into using a bean bag, which is a great alternative to a tripod or monopod. Now, in addition to the main gear, there are also some accessories that can be helpful for wildlife photography. For example, a rain cover can protect your equipment from the elements. Extra batteries and memory cards can keep you shooting for longer periods of time. And a remote shutter release can help to reduce camera shake. So don't forget to pack all these accessories when you go out on a wildlife photography shoot. When it comes to setting up your camera for wildlife photography, there are a few things to keep in mind. First of all, it's important to use a fast shutter speed to freeze the action. The exact shutter speed that you need will depend on the type of wildlife you're shooting. For example, if you're shooting birds in flight, you'll need a faster shutter speed than if you're shooting a deer. Generally speaking, I try to shoot at 1/1000th of a second or faster. I also use a high enough ISO to ensure that my images are sharp and clear. I usually shoot between ISO 400 and ISO 1600. Of course, you could shoot at lower ISOs if you have enough light, but I'd rather sacrifice some image quality for a faster shutter speed. When it comes to composition, there are a few tips and tricks that can help you to take better wildlife photos. For example, you can use the rule of thirds to place your subject off-center for a more interesting composition. You can also use leading lines to draw the viewer's eye to your subject. And you can use framing to create a natural border around your subject. One of my favorite techniques is to shoot at the animal's eye level. This can help to create a more intimate connection between the viewer and the animal. Just be careful not to get too close. Wildlife can be unpredictable, and you don't want to put yourself in danger. Finally, don't forget to check the weather forecast before heading out on a wildlife photography trip. You want to be prepared for whatever weather conditions you encounter. For example, if it's going to be raining, be sure to pack a rain cover for your equipment. If it's going to be cold, be sure to dress warmly and don't forget your gloves. The best time to go wildlife photography is during the early morning or late afternoon when the light is soft and even. It is also important to research the area you're revisiting and learn about the wildlife that lives there. Knowing where to find the animals you want to photograph will make your trip much more successful. You can also look into hiring a local guide who can help you to find the best spots. With a little bit of planning, you can ensure that your wildlife photography trip is a success. Thanks for watching. I hope this video was helpful to you. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more great content. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.